Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. In India, 3 people have been killed after police opened fire on Muslims protesting a blasphemous social media post in southern Karnataka state. Police have arrested more than 110 demonstrators and imposed a curfew in the area. They have also detained the accused, who is a relative of a Congress politician. In occupied Kashmir, Indian troops have martyred another civilian during a search operation in the Pulwama district. The occupation troops have killed more than 200 Kashmiris since India stripped the region of its autonomy last year in August. In Afghanistan, the government says at least 6 policemen have been killed and 5 others wounded in a Taliban attack in the eastern province of Nangarhar. In a statement, the provincial governor said 3 Taliban fighters were also killed as security forces repulsed the attack. The Taliban have not commented on the incident. In the United States, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has picked Senator Kamala Harris as his choice for vice president. She is the first Black and Asian woman to be chosen as a running mate. Biden will face President Donald Trump in elections on the 3rd of November. The United States has recorded 1,143 deaths from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, increasing the toll to over 164,000. In India, 834 more died, while 61,000 tested positive for the virus overnight. Pakistan has reported 17 deaths and 730 new cases, taking the tally of active infections to nearly 16,600. Globally, the number of deaths has exceeded 741,000, with over 2.3 million infections. And in football, Sevilla beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 at the MSV Arena to reach the Europa League semi-finals. They will face Manchester United on Sunday. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now we start our news bulletin from India, where 3 people have been killed after police opened fire on Muslims protesting a blasphemous social media post in southern Karnataka state. Police have arrested more than 110 demonstrators and imposed a curfew in the area. They have also detained the accused, who is a relative of a Congress politician. Muslims in India have been increasingly at risk since the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party government, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, was first elected in 2014. Last year, the Indian government enacted a controversial citizenship law, sparking violent protests across the country. Critics say the law discriminates against Muslims. Meanwhile, Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Kashmir. The occupying forces killed the youth during a cordon and search operation in the Kamrazipura area of Pulwama district. The troops have sealed all entry and exit points of the area. Indian atrocities in the occupied territories have sharply increased despite the COVID-19 outbreak. The occupation troops have killed over 200 Kashmiris since India stripped the region of its autonomy last year in August and imposed a curfew. Now, in Afghanistan, the government says at least 6 policemen have been killed and 5 others wounded in a Taliban attack in the eastern province of Nangarhar. In a statement, the provincial governor said 3 Taliban fighters were also killed as security forces repulsed the attack. The Taliban have not commented on the incident. The violence comes on the heels of intra-Afghan talks expected to begin in Qatar this week. Moving on, Israel says its warplanes have targeted multiple locations in the Gaza Strip. No casualties have been reported so far. The Defense Ministry said it struck Hamas posts in response to explosive balloons launched from Gaza. This is the third such attack in a week carried out by Israeli forces. Now, Iraq has cancelled the Turkish Defense Minister's visit to the country following the killing of 2 border guards and a soldier in a drone strike near the Iran border. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar was scheduled to visit Baghdad on Thursday, but his visit was cancelled in response to the attack. Earlier, Iraq's foreign ministry summoned the Turkish envoy to protest the attack. Meanwhile, Turkey says it has killed 2 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in Iraq's Zap region. Turkey regularly carries out attacks against the militants who have bases in northern Iraq. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, anti-government protests have resumed following a vigil for the victims of last week's explosion in Beirut. This comes after Prime Minister Hassan Diab resigned over his government's alleged mishandling of the crisis. But the move failed to pacify the protesters. People in Beirut held a minute of silence for the more than 200 people killed in the blast. The commemoration took place at the exact time when 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate stored unsafely at the port detonated. The blast at the city's port left over 6,000 people wounded and around 300,000 homeless. Moving on, the United Nations has called on Lebanese authorities to rapidly form a new government following the resignation of Prime Minister Hassan Diab and his cabinet. In a statement, UN's Lebanon envoy Jan Kubish said the new government must be able to address Lebanon's urgent and many challenges. He added that there are immediate humanitarian needs that need to be addressed and key reforms that need to be undertaken without any delay. Now, China has accused the United States of fueling an ideological conflict and reviving the Cold War in the 21st century. In an interview, Vice Foreign Minister Li Yusheng said Washington is harassing Chinese scientists, students and journalists in the United States. The Vice Foreign Minister said the U.S. likes to preach international law but puts itself above it under the guise of American exceptionalism. In the United States, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has picked Senator Kamala Harris as his choice for vice president. Biden said he was honored to name Harris as his number 2, describing her as a fearless fighter and one of the finest public servants. The former California Attorney General is the first black woman and Asian American appointed on a major presidential ticket in U.S. history. In a tweet, Harris said Biden has the ability to unify the country, but her nomination took President Donald Trump by surprise.
She was very, very nasty. One of the reasons that surprised me, she was probably nastier than even Pocahontas to Joe Biden. She was very disrespectful to Joe Biden, and it's hard to pick somebody that's that disrespectful. When she said things during the debates, during the Democrat primary debates, that were horrible about Sleepy Joe, and I would think that he wouldn't have picked.
Well, Harris, who ended her own White House bid and endorsed Biden in December last year, will be a key to help drive the African-American vote. Biden and Trump will face off in presidential elections on the 3rd of November. Now, still in the U.S., which has recorded 1,143 deaths from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, increasing the toll to over 164,000. Globally, the number of deaths has exceeded 740,000 with over 2.2 million infections. More details in this report.
While the world awaits WHO's approval of Russia's COVID-19 vaccine, thousands continue to die every day. Overwhelmed healthcare facilities and tumbling economy are exhausting the resources of Latin America to fight the pandemic. Brazil's Piranha Technology Institute has announced it is in talks with Russia for acquiring its newly registered vaccine. But US's top infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci sounded skeptical over the Russian claim.
Half a dozen or more vaccines. So if we wanted to take the chance of hurting a lot of people or giving them something that doesn't work, we could start doing this, next week if we wanted to. But that's not the way it works. So I hope, but I haven't heard any evidence to make me feel that's the case. I hope that the Russians have actually definitively proven that the vaccine is safe and effective.
New cases in Europe have prompted German authorities to issue a partial travel warning for Spain's Madrid and the Basque region. Over in Australia, the sudden spike in cases in Victoria State has dampened the hopes of the situation stabilizing anytime soon. While cluster infections in Melbourne have forced the authorities to impose a night curfew, New Zealand appears to have celebrated zero COVID status way too early as the virus returns to the island nation and it locks down Auckland.
We're down here to protect our common law rights, our rights of freedoms of movement, freedom of expression, freedom of contact with other people. These rights have been protected for generations and we're just not willing to let them go. We're simply not going to comply with lockdown restrictions and we don't consent to the authoritarian response.
The UN's International Labour Organization has voiced serious concerns over career prospects for youth under the slowed down economies and vanishing jobs.
Moreover, the novel coronavirus continues surging in India, where 834 people have died, while 61,000 tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has crossed 46,000, while infections count is over 2.3 million. There are 644,000 active cases in the country, comprising over 27% of the total caseload. The Maharashtra state continues to be worst hit with over 535,000 confirmed cases. New Delhi's attempts to recoup a declining economy have waned as the massive surge has ruled out any immediate chance of economic revival. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 17 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, with the death toll crossing 6,100. The Health Ministry says 730 cases were reported overnight, pushing the tally to more than 285,000 infections so far. The ministry said more than 263,000 people have recovered across the country. It said there are over 16,000 active cases in the country, among which 785 are in a critical condition. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 124,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 94,000 cases. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back now. Sweden says European Union foreign ministers will discuss sanctions on Belarus in an extraordinary meeting on Friday. In an interview, Sweden's Foreign Minister Anne Lange said she has received summons for the meeting on Belarus unrest. More than 1,000 people were arrested during protests over controversial election results that declare Alexander Lukashenko as the winner. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said the Council is monitoring the situation after opposition leader challenged results and fled to Lithuania. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said crackdown on freedoms and rights by Belarusian authorities is unacceptable. Now in Mali, thousands have returned to the streets in Bamako, renewing calls for President Ibrahim Keita to step down. Opposition leaders have been leading the protests against alleged government corruption and incompetence since June. Regional leaders have been trying to de-escalate the situation that worsened in July when police shot dead 11 protesters. But their call went in vain. Mali has been plagued by an 8-year conflict that began as a separatist movement in the north. Moving on now, the United Nations says 70 people have been killed, wounded during weekend clashes between South Sudan's army and armed civilians in Warrap state. United Nations spokesman Stephanie Dujarric said violence between the army and armed civilians ensued over disagreement over disarmament of civilians. The disarmament of civilians is part of the most recent peace agreement signed between South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and his rival Riek Machar. South Sudan's military spokesman Lul Ruai Kuang said 55 security personnel and 26 civilians were among the dead. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has denied the existence of fires in the Amazon rainforest, calling it a lie, despite government data suggesting otherwise. At a meeting of Amazon countries, Bolsonaro said the group must combat disinformation about the fires with correct statistics. The right-wing president said Amazon is a wet forest and it does not catch fire, as he accused the media of presenting a false narrative. Earlier, the country's National Space Agency said fires in Amazon hit a 9-year high in 2019. Foreign pressure is mounting on Brazil to protect the world's largest rainforest due to the vast amount of carbon dioxide that it absorbs. Google says it will start detecting earthquakes around the world using the accelerometer sensors in Android phones. In a statement, the company said it will begin warning residents of California about expected turbulence with the rollout of quake alerting technology.
Google says California, Japan, and Mexico already have warning systems that give people seconds to protect themselves before shaking reaches them. It said Indonesia and other countries with less cash for traditional sensors could catch up if the company's product proves effective. Seismology experts said turning smartphones into mini seismographs marked a huge advancement. Over 2.5 billion devices, including some tablets, run Google's Android operating system. Google's principal software engineer, Mark Strogaitis, said there are hundreds of millions of people that live near the earthquake fault zones. He said if people can get an early notice that an earthquake is coming towards them, they can protect themselves. According to Google, alerts would trigger for earthquakes of magnitudes 4.5 or greater. Meanwhile, the company said systems will not work in China, where Google's Play Services software is blocked.
India's largest crocodile park can run out of funds in 4 months if lockdowns to stamp the spread of coronavirus continues in the southern city of Chennai. More about this crocodile park in this report.
The Madras Crocodile Bank Trust and Center of Herpetology in India's southern city of Chennai gets about 5 million visitors a year. The ticket sales account for 50% of the revenue. But since COVID-19 outbreak, no visitors have been allowed in the park.
Keeping the current scenario in mind, we are actually not expecting substantial income from ticket revenues. So we have actually started to raise funds to make sure that we are able to see through this entire year.
The park is the biggest crocodile sanctuary in India and one of Asia's largest, hosting over 2,000 crocodiles and alligators. Workers at the park say looking after the animals is not easy, especially with some staff under quarantine for the virus.
There are some colleagues here who are quarantining right now as well. And since the staff works on shifts, and it's been difficult because there's a lot of workload and we need our full staff to be present because we have a lot of animals here.
The park was founded by prominent herpetologist Romulus Whittaker in 1976 and has bred over 5,000 crocodiles since its inception. It is currently home to 14 of the 23 existing species of crocodiles, 3 of which are endangered.
The United Kingdom economy has officially fallen into recession for the first time in 11 years due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The 20.4% contraction in the second quarter is the largest reported by any major economy so far. The Office for National Statistics said the economy grew by 8.7% in June as government restrictions started to ease. But a resurgence of coronavirus cases and lower buying power led to overall contraction during the second quarter. The UK has so far reported more than 46,000 deaths due to COVID-19 and over 313,000 infections. European stocks have edged higher as investors bank their hopes on Russia's COVID-19 vaccine to help open the world economy. London's FTSE 100 has gained over 0.5%. Paris's CAC 40 has risen fractionally, while Frankfurt's DAX fell marginally. The pan-European stock 600 gained fractionally, with telecom surging 2.2% after a landmark acquisition deal. Earlier, all Asian bourses traded lower. Now in football, Sevilla beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0 at the MSV Arena to reach the Europa League semi-finals. Sevilla midfielder Lucas Ocampos headed in a late goal to snatch a victory for the five-time winners. Goalkeeper Bono saved a penalty from Wolves forward Raul Jimenez in the 13th minute as Julian Lopetegui's side took control. The Spaniards will now face Manchester United in the last four in Cologne on Sunday. In the other quarterfinals, Ukrainian champions Shakhtar Donetsk beat Swiss club FC Basel by 4-1 at the Veltins Arena. Brazilian quarters of Junior Moraes, Tyson, Alan Patrick and Dodo scored for the Ukrainians, while Ricky van Wolfswinkel grabbed a consolation for Basel. Aqsa Mushtaq, an English striker of Pakistani origin, has joined the Italian club Napoli. The club said Aqsa joined the Italian side from Lenoir-Rhyne University in the US. Born to a Pakistani couple in Bradford, Aqsa represented Bradford City Ladies in Women's Premier League North before moving to the US. The midfielder secured a sports-based scholarship at Lenoir-Rhyne in 2016. She was included in the All-SAC first team in 2018 after scoring 5 goals and 4 assists during the season. The midfielder says she wants to become a role model for the next generation of Asian women who want to pursue professional sports. Now in the National Basketball Association, Portland Trail Blazers beat Dallas Mavericks by 134 points to 131 at the Biosecure Bubble in the Disney World. Damian Lillard scored a career-high 61 points. Lillard is the first ever player in Portland to score 50-plus points in consecutive games. Meanwhile, Devin Booker had 35 points and 9 rebounds as Suns beat the Philadelphia 76ers by 130 points to 117. In another clash, Milwaukee Bucks thrashed Washington Wizards by 126 to 113. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.